Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing good, Jamie. It's good times in Xboxville. How about you?
Great. I mean, normally we have like one or two topics where I get a bit heated, but well, you know what? There's probably still one of them. But for the most part, it's pretty much a positive week. We've had a lot of good gaming news, and yeah, I mean, we'll get into it shortly. But have you been playing anything interesting?
Yeah, I've been playing kind of a weird mix of stuff. I've been playing Fear 2, going back through the saga. Really enjoying that. Missed that series. It's such a missed opportunity. Like, it's a shame it's trapped in, Warner Brothers IP basement somewhere. I just wish someone would resurrect it and bring it back. It's so good. Holds up well. It's Series X enhanced. It's great stuff. Playing Fear 2. Randomly been playing Peggle 2. It's a nice mindless game to play when you're gearing down. Just, pinball, etc. Power Wash Simulator. Thinking about jumping into some other more narrative games. How about you, man?
The Quarry. I've mainly been playing the Quarry. That game is,
Great stuff.
yeah, damn good. I started Man of Medan a few years ago when it came out, but I never really finished it. I just kind of put it on the back burner. But the Quarry kind of interested me because it has that sort of, I know what you did last summer type thing going on.
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of the Scream movies, and this is kind of like that in a way ish, but like wow, phenomenal. The graphics for one thing, probably some of the best this generation,
Yeah,
and
they're insane.
yeah, and I just have to say like it's probably a must play for people that like horror. And I'm about 60% way through, but yeah, hell of a game. I finished Star Trek Resurgence. That is also a Telltale style game. I highly recommend. If people like the TNG era, Star Trek, The Next Generation, Voyager, D Space Nine, that's for them. Right, it's 100% made for fans of that. There's like obscure references to episodes of Star Trek from like '92, so like it's clearly made by Star Trek fans for fans. Um, yeah, and I've been playing Ravenlock. That's in Game Pass. It's a very chill. I don't want to call it an RPG, but it has RPG elements. It's a very chill adventure game. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Finished GTA 5 for the umpteenth time. I mean, what can I say? It's Grand Theft Auto 5. I will say this though. I've played Grand Theft Auto 5 for probably hundreds, no, literally thousands of hours. And, I finished the next gen version of the campaign, playing it at 60 FPS on Series X was amazing. Like, I know, Logan, you haven't played Five's campaign, right?
No, I've played 5 and beaten it. I just haven't played the Series X updated version.
Yeah, so 60 FPS is a world of difference. But, like, for people that don't know, I was literally addicted to GTA Online when it came out, to the point where I put in about 30,000 hours or something like that. Like a ridiculous high number, to the point where my backlog was just growing, and I wasn't touching any other game. I was just obsessed with GTA Online, and it got to a point where I literally had to delete it. I was like, that's all I could think about: GTA Online, GTA Online. So like, I'm not touching the multiplayer for that ever again. But yeah, if people want to play the campaign, it's great, great game at 60 FPS. But yeah, let's get into the meat and potatoes because we have a crap ton of topics. I think we have like 19 topics. It's stupid. I didn't count them, but it looks like 19ish. So now, Logan, this mainly affects people in the US, but we need to go over it anyway because 90% of the people listen from obviously from the US. So the ESRB in the US, the ratings board of the United States, want to actually do face scanning for video games. Um, Logan, what's your take on that? Because I just burst out laughing when I saw that.
Yeah, my first thought is I not in a million years do I think that's a good idea for okay, take a step back. I understand the idea of it and why theoretically in a pure and happy good society that could work and that would be great. But the idea of these corporations and stuff getting more access to biometrics and like scanning people's faces and identities and linking to accounts, like stuff like that is it's 84 Cameron, name your dystopian author or filmmaker of choice. It's it's very bad vibes to me. And now even from a non, Skynet territory, I can think of people it would backfire on. Like, there are some people I know who are older who have baby faces, and it's like, we're not going to let you play this. Or, there's some people, it's like, dude, this kid looks 40. But, he's like 16 or whatever. So, I don't know. I just think it's a really, really bad idea.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna fly. Like in the UK, the UK's adopted a lot of like smart technology for the past 10 years. Like instant banking apps is like a big thing in the UK. You can transfer money to someone literally on an app within seconds. It's been a thing here for years. Face scanning for things, it's a thing here for years. But like when I say like the US is like a massive country. It's like 100 times bigger than the UK, and it's not like the UK where it's pretty much the same all over the place. In the US, you have very different areas, and I can't see face scanning being acceptable in a lot of that place. Like who wants to put their kid in front of a camera? And like you're saying, what if someone has a baby face? Like over here in the UK, to buy alcohol and not get ID'd, you have to look over 25, even though the drinking age is 18. So if you don't want to carry an ID with you, you have to look over 25. And the whole scanning your face to play age-gated games, that's just not going to work. It's not going to work. And, the funny thing is, people underage drink. That's a thing, In the UK, you start college at 16. People underage drink from 16. I know. I was there. I did it. And, even... I don't even know I should talk about this.
It's okay. Statute of limitations is probably past.
Yeah, I mean, like in the UK, you can drink from 18, obviously, but you start college at 16. So you go to parties, and there was actual college sanctioned parties where I went, where they hired out a nightclub, and there was 16 to 18-year-olds, and you drank alcohol. That was like known, right? So you never had to worry about getting ID. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but anyway, face aging and all that stuff. Like, I don't think it makes sense. I still get ID'd all the time. A lot of people do. I don't think that would be acceptable in the UK because, like, you don't want to put your kid in front of a camera. Considering in the modern age, there's people that's being creepy and all that stuff. No, that's not going to fly. that really isn't going to fly. I will say this, though. There's other things they can do. Everyone listening right now, if you have a kid, the chances are you know about technology. All these consoles we have now have parental controls. You can set it so your kids can only play, games that are rated, 12, 15, 18, or whatever it is in the US. So, like, I don't see the point of the face scanning thing. Like, I know in the US, obviously you have the same consoles and you have the same, technology and like settings and that. So the face thing seems a bit much. Yeah, bit weird. Anyway, we'll move on. Down we have a lot of topics. Okay, so Terminator Resistance. Now, this game got a lot of people hated a few years back because it came out in the UK. For some reason, that game came out 2 months in the UK before the US. Bit weird. But anyway, it came out. It's the best Terminator game to date. I'm not even kidding. And there was no next-gen version for Xbox. People were livid. People were thinking, did Sony pay through the nose to get the exclusivity deal? I thought it was because it's literally a tiny team. Well, last week, we just got announced the next-gen version of Terminator Resistance. It's going to include the expansions, obviously the next-gen upgrade and all that stuff. And then if you want to upgrade your current copy, there's a free update going out in September. So, hey, if you've been waiting on the fence or whatever, it's coming. And if you didn't get it at the time, I highly recommend it. Like, Logan, did you play the Terminator game?
No, it was one that I had been kind of holding off on because I was a little miffed and peeved that they skipped the next gen for Xbox. So now that they fixed that, I'll hop in.
Yeah, like when I say best Terminator game to date, I mean that. Like I love Terminator, and funny thing is, that game has the best version of the Terminator theme. Not even kidding. Um, yeah, it's basically a semi-linear first-person shooter. It's very faithful to the Terminator like series. Like it's mainly Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 it pays attention to. But yeah, next gen version's coming, all that stuff, and I think people have been on the fence. Yeah, it's coming. Anyway, we'll move on. Like I said, we have a lot of topics. Okay, so Techland, the creators of Dying Light 2, the majority shares of that company have been purchased by Tencent. Now, a few things confused me. I assumed that Embracer owned Techland. Apparently, I was wrong. I also thought that Microsoft would have went for them at some point because they were marketing Dying Light 2 constantly, at least in the UK anyway. I think whenever a company's buying another one, like, Microsoft buying Activision, people freaked out. They freaked out when they bought Bethesda, but Tencent going around buying companies is completely fine and everyone's okay with it. So, yeah. Logan, what's your thought on that? Because, like, Tencent, that's a bit of a weird situation.
Yeah, Tencent's one of those that you kind of have to dance around because like they're it's a big regional entity and it's kind of like they're in the shadows and like they just emerge and reach out this shadowy hand and like grab another company and then pull it back into their war chest, or they'll go, okay, here's like 60% ownership instead of 100%, so we control it but not entirely. And so it's just this foreign entity that is keeps growing and growing and growing and growing in power. And you mentioned Phil mentions them, other execs have mentioned them as like, hey, this is the true competition. Like these guys aren't messing around; they're playing to win, and they're gobbling up studios left and right. Nobody seems to bat an eye. That or they're just for some reason are just choosing not to. It's just another one of those double standards of like if you look at actual like money and everything in the gaming industry, like they're bigger than Xbox right now, I'm pretty confident, and they're just enormous. And so the fact that, Xbox is trying to get up to where they can compete with these guys, people are throwing out Monopoly and just goofy stuff that is clearly not accurate. But, turning a blind eye to Tencent and all these other companies getting bigger and bigger and bigger and it's no big deal. It's annoying. I mean, it's smart on Tencent's end, and as long as it's legal and allowed, they're going to keep doing it. So, kudos to them for their strategy. It's working, obviously. But it is kind of annoying when they snatch up a company you were hoping Xbox or somebody would get, but maybe they were tied up with ABK or something else. Or people just, head in the sand pretending nothing's happening because it's not Xbox related.
Yeah, people seem to freak out when it's just Microsoft. Like, whenever, like, Embracer owns more studios than probably Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo combined. Actually, I think that is the
Yeah,
case.
it's hilarious how many they have.
Yeah, like, I think I read a few months ago that they have, like, 90 games in development. Like, it's ridiculous how many games they have. And, 10 cents, like, we don't know what their plans are. They've had patents leak in the past where they have, like, streaming based controllers in development. So we don't know what their plans are. Although, I will say this, I don't think there's space in gaming for a fourth home console. I don't think that'll be a thing. But yeah, 10 cents. That's another one gone. But yeah, we'll move on. I will say this topic I wasn't actually going to include on me as well because I can rant a little because I have good things to say about Square Enix in a bit. Well, some anyway. But I have a little bit of a rant going on. So, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It's next gen only. It's a game that I personally love. I know Logan loves it too. It's my game of the year so far. and I think everyone listening right now should play it. It's an incredible game. Now, with that said, Respawn is apparently making last-gen versions. That kind of confuses me, and it doesn't at the same time, because it's an extremely visually impressive game, from sound design, world design. Like, even the map of the first main planet is ridiculously impressive with the amount of different like biomes it has. It feels like a next gen game, because it is. And as you're playing it, I thought, well, this can't be possible on last generation. Now, when that game was releasing, I was worried about it doing well, because it was the first Star Wars game to be £70 or $70, and I thought, a lot of people aren't buying games brand new at $70 or £70. So, like, my thought was, like, it's obviously going to sell less because people are waiting for the prices to go down. And when I saw that today, I was like, okay, it's clearly underperformed compared to the last game. Even though the first month they did say it outperformed the first game, I'm assuming, and I hope I'm wrong, I assume that it's sold less over the past few months compared to the first game. EA doesn't realize that, maybe $70 games isn't exactly a good idea. So they're going to try and hurry together a last-gen version to get extra money. Because, look, the majority of gamers right now are on last generation, right? That is just the truth. And when I saw that, I was thinking, okay, it's the price. Logan, am I crazy? Do you think it is the price? Because, like, look, most of the Star Wars fans are clearly on last generation. Do you think they're making a mistake by making the last gen version? Do you think the price being $70 hurt the initial launch?
I honestly don't think the $70 tag is why they would be doing this. I think you would sell better if it was less, but obviously it outperformed the first one when it first launched and has done well enough. They're already greenlit a third one and they're getting it going. My guess is this is more like, Jimbo and, Sony deciding after We Believe in Generations to go ahead and make PS4 ports of Horizon 2 and, God of War Ragnarok and Harry Potter finally getting around to having, their game on PS4 and Xbox One as well. Like, to me, it just seems like a way to get some more money, and because there's been such a shortage of these next gen consoles. Like, you look at Xbox's financials, like, their consoles continue to be a sticking point in their revenue. They're just not selling as many as you would like. Not like they're doing terrible. It's just it should be better. And whether that's supply, whatever it is clearly the vast majority of people are still on Xbox One and PS4, even though folks like you and I have been early day one adopters of current gen. But, the numbers as a whole, the vast majority of people, including, the casuals that would show up for a Star Wars or a Marvel or a FIFA, COD, whatever, are on last gen. So to me, it just seems like a no-brainer to make a last gen, if possible. I'm worried it's going to be a horrendous experience because the performance of this game was suboptimal on PC. Let's put it that way. And then we didn't have issue on Series X, or at least I didn't have too much issue at all. But I know some people did. On Series X and PS5, it's way more polished now than it was at launch, but I'm just worried that it would be a potato port, instead of a good experience. But I get the idea, and I don't think it's well, crap, we didn't sell enough. We need to cobble together a port to patch up on the back end. I think it's more there's more people here. People love Star Wars. Let's get it to them, even if it's a shoddier experience, so that we can get it out there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just me panicking. Every TV show I like gets cancelled. So, like, when I see
Firefly, man, I know.
I'm still salty about Firefly. The Expanse is basically done. It's just like everything I like seems to get cancelled. So when it comes to video games, like I'm a bit cautious. Like I really want them to do well, but yeah, they are making the third one. My performance was okay. Like it was fine. I think we've said in the previous episode, I started on performance mode. 60 FPS, and then I was like 5 minutes into the game, and I was like, let's see what quality mode looks like. And my jaw hit the floor. I picked it up and I continued to play. And that's how I played basically 90% of Jedi Survivor. At 30 frames, because it looked so good. As much as I love 60 frames, by the way, but if a game is 30, I'll put it out there. It's not a deal breaker. It's just not. Some people will get angry at that, I'm sure, but just Jedi Survivor is an incredible game. I hope they do the game justice because, like you said, there's millions of fans stuck on last generation, and I think it's one of the reasons why mid-gen refreshes as a topic gets a bit heated, because we all know, 90% of the games we get are cross-gen still. The ones that we do get are next-gen only. Is there that much of a leap? Developers still... Yeah, developers still aren't getting 100% of the power out of these consoles. So, whenever mid-gen refreshes gets brought up, like this topic right now, a new-gen game is coming to last generation. Hogwarts Legacy went to last generation, although that was already announced. By the way, they're going to get Hogwarts Legacy running on Switch. I think it's November. I don't know how that's going to work.
Have a fan and ice nearby.
Yeah, but I loved Hogwarts Legacy. That was my game of the year. But yeah, I hope it's a good version. And hell, if it's a good version and it has a different achievement list, I'll put it out there. I'll probably buy it again, just because, But yeah, great game. I highly recommend people play it. It's arguably one of the best Star Wars games ever made. Actually, I'm going to put it out there. I think it's the best Star Wars game ever made. That is high praise.
It's one of my favorite games ever. It's a masterpiece in my opinion. It and Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 are neck and neck. If not, this might actually be my favorite one ever. It's incredible, and it's my game of the year. And Starfield's still coming, and I expect it to be incredible. But there was just something transcendent about that game.
Yeah. Again, I'll try and sell as many copies of that game as I can because that game was just incredible. I talk about how I can't stand bloated games, and that game did not feel bloated. It felt perfectly right for its time. Again, my current game of the year. Anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, Star Wars Jedi Survivor coming to last generation. I didn't actually put this on the topics list, but I think we should talk about it. So, Logan, did you see the Switch leak?
Yeah, for second half of next year, right?
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, the leaks were pulled from Reset Era.
Can't imagine why. Those ninjas, man.
Yeah. Now, considering Nintendo is Nintendo, I just want to talk about the backwards compatibility option, part of it, because I'm a big advocate for backwards compatibility, and even though it's not Xbox, I know it's an Xbox podcast, but I want to talk about it because backwards compatibility is important. We'll be talking about the Activision backwards compatible games later. There's so many games that we just can't play anymore, and that's a shame, right? I talk about the Saboteur a lot from 360. You can't play that. You can play it on PC, and that's it, basically. My Xbox 360 is from, I think it's a 2010 model. It's very old, and it's very loud. Same with my PlayStation 3 Slim. And whenever old games gets brought up, I always get one or two replies by people saying, hey, just hook up your old console and play them that way. I hate to be that. Actually, no, I don't hate to be that person. I love to be this person. People have to stop saying that crap because the consoles have moving parts. It's not like an N64 where you can have it buried in a desert for 1,000 years, dig it up and it'll work, right? These consoles have moving parts. They have hard drives. They have disk drives. They aren't always going to work, right? My PlayStation 3 sounds like it's about to take off. My Xbox 360 Slim sounds almost like it's about to take off. So like us having like every console from our past hooked up is just not a viable solution for playing our old games. It just isn't. And Nintendo, they've had a weird situation in the past. The Wii U had an amazing lineup of exclusives, right? Third-party games, they didn't have a lot because of the whole console sales situation. And when they moved to the Switch, they moved to memory cards. So everyone knew, okay, I'm not going to be able to put my disc in the the Nintendo Switch. Everyone knew that. So when you think like Nintendo, they're at the highest of the high right now they've ever been. And people have these big libraries. All these multi-platform games are also going to the Switch. Like the Arkham trilogy is apparently going to the Switch and all that stuff. I think it already got announced. And the fact that you're going to have Arkham Knight running on a portable console is mind-blowing. And then when I see that yesterday, where their next console might not actually be backwards compatible, I was kind of stunned. Because I think people are going to lose it. I think people are genuinely going to be angry to the point where it might actually put them off. And I want Nintendo to succeed. I don't have a Switch, but I want them to have backwards compatibility. Logan, it's a messy situation.
Yeah, Nintendo they have a complicated history with backwards compatibility because, some of their consoles have been just awesome about it. Like, you can play several generations on one thing. It's really great. It's awesome. And then they have some where it's only that generation, nothing else. And then they've added, digital libraries where you can play some older games. But now they have it to where a bunch of those are hidden behind a subscription or you're having to rebuy them again. I can't tell you how many times I have had to buy Super Mario Bros. 3 to play that game on all these different Nintendo devices I have. And, the older Pokemon games, it used to be you could just trade with cable, and now it's like you got Pokemon Bank, you've got all this stuff. It's super convoluted and complicated. And, the switch from disc to, cartridge obviously was a big change. And assuming, Switch 2 or whatever they call it is going to be cartridge as well, you hope that Switch games will carry over, but if they go back to disc, that's a big problem. Unless they can come up with a hybrid console that'll do both, which I don't know if that's possible or not. I'm not that advanced in tech to do that. But it's another one of those big conundrums because the Switch has a killer library. Phenomenal. People don't debate that. It's amazing. Idea that you have this killer lineup of games that are suddenly just bye Felicia, you just toss them away. You can't play them on a Switch follow-up just because reasons. I don't think that's going to sit with people. People might pay the Switch tax and pay more money for games or buy amiibos and all cardboard boxes so that they can do a racing game or whatever, but it gets to a point where people get fed up with it, and I think people would be fed up with that.
Yeah, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $1.99. He says, I think it will be fully backwards compatible. I hope you're right, because even though I don't have a Switch, there's games I'm looking at. I could see Nintendo releasing their Switch 2, and then, maybe within a few months of release, maybe Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey get performance upgrades or visual upgrades. So I would love to go back to, a bunch of their games that I've missed. Hell, I'd even buy ports of games I already have. The Assassin's Creed games on Switch. Again, the Batman games, all that stuff. So yeah, I hope it happens. It will be interesting though, because even though they have a unified, system account now, so you're going to be able to sign into your account on the next Switch. That doesn't necessarily mean your games are going to be there. Remember, we signed into our Xbox Ones, and our 360 digital games weren't there. So, but hey, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the leak was wrong, because a lot of people have massive Switch libraries. But yeah, weird situation if that doesn't pan out. But yeah, and we're probably not going to hear about this till the end of the year anyway. Try not to mention Nintendo too much because they can be weird with like YouTube content, which is unfortunate. But yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. You know, I want to talk about Ubisoft. You know, before we talk about Ubisoft for about half an hour in the show, if you like it, the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel out. If you want to support the show with super chats, it's all live. I'll read out your questions and answer them, whatever. So Ubisoft did something, and it made me angry. So we have wish lists on Xbox now. I think we've had wish lists for like 3 years or something. And occasionally I'll find like a backwards compatible game, like Enchanted Arms, for instance, and I'll put it in there and I'll probably try and get it at some point. And that was one of the few 360 games that was like almost still full price in the UK digitally. And it just randomly got pulled from Xbox Live without any warning whatsoever. And about 4 months ago, Ubisoft did the exact same crap with they did the exact same crap with bloody the Splinter Cell games from the original Xbox. Now that pisses me off because that's legacy games, right? And Ubisoft keeps pulling them. There's no warning whatsoever, and it's happening over and over again. And the thing about Ubisoft is they don't have 360 games or OG games in their subscription service. So why the fuck are they pulling them? Sorry for swearing, but why are they pulling them? Logan, like, it was out of the blue. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's dumb. I mean, just frankly, it's dumb that we finally get these suckers backwards compatible, and everybody's excited about them and plays them and enjoys them, and little by little they just whittle away and disappear from libraries. Like, and quite a few of the times lately they've been without warning. Like, at least have the courtesy to put a warning up, like, hey, these games will be delisted on this date. For whatever reason, you may not agree with our decisions, but we're going to be delisting them at this date. Give people a heads up. Because if not, you're just screwed. Like, if you don't already have it. And, like, some of these games, there's a domino effect, because some of these games are only available digitally. And so if you miss the boat, you missed the boat. It's like, tough luck, kid, you're out. And some of these, and then another aspect is, some of these games, their prices become just otherworldly expensive on physical if they're no longer digital. Like, there are a few BC games that are physical only, like 50 Cent Blood in the Sand, for example.
That's £300, eh?
Yeah, it is insanity. Like, it went from like $12, like in the US used, to like 100, like overnight after that BC announcement. And like, games like that, King Kong, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Fear 1 and Fear Files. Like, there are some games that are only physical because they've been delisted digitally. And you know what? I'm cool with it being BC, period. Like, I want all the games they can make BC to be BC, even if they have to be physical or digital only. I want people to be able to play them. But I hate the idea of them being made BC with both as an option and then one being yanked at a later date. That doesn't sit right with me.
I just don't understand how it's legal. Like, how can it be legal for Ubisoft or anyone to pull their game willy-nilly without letting us know? Because that is bloody stupid. The fact that we pay for these games, they're on the store, like, there should be at least be, like, an end date. Like, you know how Forza games have, like, a life of, like, 3 years due to the licenses? Like, we get told in advance that, hey, Forza's going to be delisted in, September or October or whatever. And we all know this. Everyone knows this, and I feel like, Forza's maybe the only franchise we get that with. The new Avengers game, but new, like, that gets delisted in September. It's on. I think it's still on sale. I bought it last night for £6, and you know what? I played the campaign. I thought it was decent. I thought that the multiplayer hashed on stuff was crap. I'll put it out there. I thought that was just terrible. But as a single player campaign, it was pretty fun. So I thought it was worth the £6, and that's in my library to keep. But Ubisoft, they keep doing this stuff more than anyone. They are bloody egregious. And out of all the companies, like, they don't release collections of like old games. You know, they're not going to remaster a bunch of old Splinter Cell games and sell them as a package. No, they're not doing that. It's just they pull in games that make no sense. And it's a shame because, again, that's just another game that's lost to time. And I tried buying a new copy, and yes, I try and buy new sealed 360 games still. Those are harder to find than unicorns, by the way. For the past few years now, so if you have a 360, you need the disc to actually run the game, right? If you have a scratched up Blu-ray on Xbox One or PlayStation 4, you put the disc in and it installs, and then it just uses the disc as a key, right? But on 360, you need the disc to actually run the whole thing. So now I'm only buying 360 games if they are still sealed in the plastic. Man, those are so hard to find. Like, Logan, 360 games in the US, extremely hard to find sealed.
Sealed, I'd say yeah. It's a challenge to find sealed, but luckily over here we have some avenues to where we can get discs repaired for pretty cheap if you need to, or you can buy a machine that'll do it for not that much. But in general, yeah, sealed copies of 360 or an OG game example would be finding gold in the desert.
Yeah, Enchanted Arms was just another game on the list I wanted to buy, but I just wish they gave us a warning or something. And like, pulling the Splinter Cell games hurt more than anything. Like, why? Like, Splinter Cell is heavily tied to Xbox, and you just pull them. That was just terrible, man. Anyway, speaking of the Ubisoft stuff, they have a weird login policy. We kind of need to talk about this because some people were defending it, and I have reasons to why it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So basically, if you don't sign into your Ubisoft account for, was it 3 years, Logan, or 2?
I can't remember. I haven't kept up with this.
Right, so it's either 2 or 3 years. If you don't sign into your Ubisoft account, your account gets deactivated, and you can't play your games that you own anymore. Now, there were a bunch of people saying, well, if you're not going to play and use your account for 2 years, why would you want to keep your games and all that stuff? Here's why that doesn't make sense. Let's say you're a Ubisoft fan, but you only play Splinter Cell, right? That means you haven't had a reason to log into your Ubisoft account, technically, since 2013. That was the last Splinter Cell game. What if you're an Assassin's Creed fan like me, but you happen to only like the old style? That means you haven't bought a Splinter Cell game, or should I say an Assassin's Creed game, since 2014. So the whole, like, it's okay for this to happen is stupid. Like, we buy our games digitally, we should own them, we get to keep them, and not logging onto your service for 2 years is the dumbest limitation I've ever heard. Ever. And I love Ubisoft, right? I buy a lot of their games, but the fact that they're doing this is, like, it's kind of scary if you think about it, because what if someone was, like, away on, like, war or something? Like, any amount of reasons to not log into your account for 2 years, and all of a sudden you just don't have access to your titles. That is just stupid. Like, Logan, when was the last time you logged into your Ubisoft account, like, or played a Ubisoft game?
Oh man, it's been a hot minute. Probably since I last logged into a Ubisoft account, it probably would be Assassin's Creed one in Egypt. I'm trying to remember.
Origins.
Yeah, Origins. That would be the last time I've played a mainline Ubi game. So my count would be toast by now, probably.
Yeah, and as far as I know, it's only on PC, but like, all these policies and stuff can change all the time. So who knows? Maybe it'll affect consoles in the future. Maybe that's why they have the whole, they have the stream, or I should say the subscription service on consoles now. We just don't know. And in an age when a lot of gaming and entertainment in general, it's going digital, whether people like it or not. And then this crap starts happening. It's kind of scary. Did you see that thing recently where apparently in Australia, Disney, a total, they're gonna stop selling Blu-rays in Australia.
Yeah, that's a massive buzzkill. I mean, it's already egregiously expensive to import anything down there anyway. For our friend Special Nick and other people who live down there. Kangaroo bucks are expensive, so it I get it, but it's a shame because it's yet another avenue people can't, watch their films or shows.
Yeah, and just everything's going digital, with subscription services. And the thing is, owning your games digitally should be a thing, but that accounts thing is egregious. So it's gone from, yeah, you can own your game digitally to, no, you can't really own it digitally if you don't sign in for 2 years. And it's just silly. People need to push back against this stuff. And my biggest problem about gamers in general is that they only push it back about certain things, right? Microsoft wanted to raise the price of Xbox Live Gold. And remember, everyone pushed back so hard that Microsoft, within 12 hours, denounced it, basically. But these other things, gamers don't speak up on. And it pisses me off, right? The price of games going up to 70. Silence. Everyone lets it happen. It happened, and everyone's selling $70 games now. And then you have this account bullshit. Like, it's doing my head in. It's doing my... Okay, I saw Warpig in chat mention it's 3 years. But 3 years still is not much time, if you think about it. If you only play Splinter Cell, unless you've played a BC game, you have no reason to log into your Ubisoft account. For years. Hell, but what, I think it was the 12th of August, 10 years ago, when the last Splinter Cell game released. And it's a shame. It's a shame. People are losing the games. We'll move on.
Yeah, Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I have a bit of a bone to pick with them about, canceling that a sequel to, basically the Breath of the Wild type game they had. Like, I was really bummed to hear that.
You know what? I actually forgot about that, and I really wanted to talk about it this week. So I think it's the hate over here. It's getting to me. So Immortals Fenyx Rising, the game that's basically ancient Greece, Breath of the Wild. That was my game of the year 2020. I loved that game. And basically, in 2021, there was a bit of a leak where the next game was going to have an ancient Hawaiian setting, right? I thought that was really cool. We haven't really had a video game set in, ancient Hawaii. So I was like, okay, we're going to get a sequel a few years from now. I'm cool with it. I'll wait a few years. And here we are in 2023. And, it's the future now. And it turns out Immortals Fenyx Rising 2 is cancelled. And the thing I saw today, which really got me angry, is that because they're going all in on Assassin's Creed. Right? Immortals Fenyx Rising is the best new IP, one of the best new IPs this generation. It's a fun game. There wasn't a million icons over the map. You weren't heavily directed where to go. It was kind of just this free, open adventure. And the map, even though it was very vertical, the map wasn't actually that big. You went everywhere on your horse or you glided, but it's a brilliant game. And they could have done every single, mythology with that style of game, and they are basically going all in on Assassin. I put it like this: we are basically going to get maybe 2 Assassin's Creed games a year at some point soon.
Oh no!
And before I continue to rage, we have another super chat by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $4.99. He says, "What was the worst game you've ever played?" You know what? I can actually give you an answer. The worst video game I've ever played ever was The Mummy Returns on the PlayStation 2. Now, I was a huge fan of... Everyone's a huge fan of Brendan Fraser. The Mummy, amazing film. The Mummy 2, great film. The game for the sequel, oh man, I was so disappointed as a kid. I put it like this, like it was a PlayStation 2 game, right? You expected better graphics than the original PlayStation. It basically had PlayStation 1 generation graphics. It had extremely Logan. Can you remember how PlayStation 1 games where they'd stretch textures across like floors and walls rather than just repeat them?
Oh yeah, it was pretty grimy.
Yeah. So it looked like a PlayStation 1 game where you'd approach like a pyramid and they'd have this one texture stretched across the entire wall. And it was awful. The voice acting when they did have it was terrible. The gameplay was awful. It was basically a Tomb Raider clone that wasn't as good. And it came out about 8 years after Tomb Raider. So that is officially the worst game I've ever played. Logan, what's the worst game you've ever played?
I gotta go with Superman 64.
Oof.
That game was awful. It's one of those infamous games, and with good reason. It was just complete and just utter, just bleh. And there's a reason we don't get Superman games generally. It was really bad.
You know, I'll throw another one in there considering you mentioned Superman. There was a Superman game. It was either late PlayStation 1 or early PlayStation 2 where you played as Superman, but you could only fly about a foot off the ground.
And so you're levitate, man.
Basically, and 90% of the game was set in like underground like bases and bunkers and stuff. Like you couldn't actually fly around. But yeah, like we've had some awful games in the past. Like genuinely awful. I put it like this, that I don't like to crap talk games on Twitter because, you know, a lot of indie developers do follow me, so I don't like to upset any of them, and I won't name the game. But there was a game released on Xbox in about, I think it was like 2017 or something. It was an indie game. It cost about £10, this game. And the whole game revolved around QuickTime events. And it is the only game I have ever issued a refund for an indie game. Like, it was bad. But yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for the $4.99 super chat, Nick W. But yeah, there's been awful games, like really awful games. Like, even though it was before my time, like I've played E.T. on the Atari, like
landfill version, baby.
Yeah, like that game became Landfill, like just an absolute awful game. I might as well continue with some bad games before we continue with the Ubisoft thing. But as someone that I used to have a lot of Game Boy Advance games.
Man, it was chock full of some duds.
Yeah, and you know, back then, you basically bought a game off what the cover art was like and like the pictures on the back. And back then, there was Star Wars games announced and released on the Game Boy Advance constantly. Because on console, we had great Star Wars games. You know, you had Knights of the Old Republic, you had the pod racing games, Star Wars Starfighter, Star Wars Jedi Knight, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, all that stuff. And then on Game Boy, you had some absolute trash fire, right? Like, absolute terrible games. I got I think it was called Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and it was basically a sideways beat-em-up where you played as Anakin Skywalker, and it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. You know, hell, I think in future we could dedicate an entire show or something to, like, just shit games. Like...
Oh, I mean, I remember Star Wars Masters of Terras Kai. That was not great either. Or Episode 1,
original Xbox.
You know, I have a soft spot in my heart for that one because I really enjoyed the duel with Maul at the end. But yeah, different time, different era.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, right? But funny thing about that game is that, you know, back on the original Xbox, there was a sticker on the bottom saying certified for Xbox. Yeah. One of the team from Xbox a few months ago messaged me saying that apparently Star Wars Obi-Wan wasn't actually certified. So that game was originally not basically given like all the rights and the OK and the go-ahead to actually release. And that game was buggy. The frame rate was like, I think it was like 2 frames per second. If you wanted to play against like Darth Maul or do the 1v1 thing, the frame rate would tank again. But yeah. There's some colossally bad games out there. It's amazing, really. Anyway, thank you very much, Nick W. But yeah, awful games. Anyway, Logan, I want to hear your take on the whole Immortals Fenyx Rising 2 thing, because to me that was an incredible game, and not having a sequel is kind of terrible.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of a bone to pick with them about this because it's not the first time that Ubisoft has had a potentially really beautiful, creative franchise to work with, like Child of Light, for example. And then it's like, wow, this is awesome. We've got something really great to work with here. Like, this first game is pretty good. There are ways to improve it, but I really like it. We've got, solid foundation, got good clay to mold, make something great. And then, lo and behold, it gets backburnered to death and then eventually gets taken out to pasture. And it really sucks. Like, you hate to call a company or a studio or vision, whatever, creatively bankrupt, but it kind of feels that way sometimes. Especially when, lo and behold, they finally let some light in, there's some life, things are going great with something, and then it gets sidelined for must chase the Assassin's Creed money to death, the algorithm, and then you have 200 million UI markers on your screen, and you're having to find 5 donkeys in one town like 100 billion times, or just rinse and repeat, all formulaic nonsense. Like, I get it. If you must chase the almighty dollar for Assassin's Creed, rinse and repeat, so be it. But at least have some other franchises going in the pipeline as well, like this. But then they axe it. And then they can't seem to stop shooting their foot off with a shotgun when it comes to, Prince of Persia keeps being delayed over and over and over and over and over again. So it's madness, man.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed is basically Assassin's Creed prints money. It's a big game on all platforms. They're gonna start putting Assassin's Creed in the future on future Nintendo hardware, so it's gonna sell even more. But I think people make fun of Activision for only making COD, and that is a fair point. They basically only make COD right now, anyway. But Ubisoft's getting to the point where it's just going to be Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six updates, and maybe the occasional Ghost Recon, and even that, a bunch of games. Like, I heard a while ago that the next Watch Dogs game got cancelled. And I like Watch Dogs, but it's just I think Ubisoft has no direction. There's a position at Ubisoft called editorial, where they basically sign and give the go-ahead for sequels, new games, or whatever. Basically decide what games get developed. And around Christmas time, there was an article put out where the new head of editorial was excited about how they're going to introduce new types of games and a wide variety of experiences. It's wouldn't Immortals Fenyx Rising 2 fill that spot? Because Immortals Fenyx Rising, it's not like Assassin's Creed at all. And it's just I love Assassin's Creed, but if they only make Assassin's Creed games and pump out 2 a year, they're going to burn the franchise down. People will get sick of it and eventually move on. I just hope, I hope it's not true, although considering it came from multiple sources, I think it's happened. I just don't understand. Ubisoft can really make me angry sometimes. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago who was my favourite third-party publisher, I would have said Ubisoft. Back then they were coming out with, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, you had a pirate, open-world pirate game. You had Splinter Cell Blacklist, where, in my opinion, has the best mission design out of any of these Splinter Cell games. You had a Ghost Recon Advanced Future Warfighter, whatever. Future Soldier. That's it. I always get them mixed up. And then they had a bunch of smaller indie style games at the time. They had Rayman Legends and Rayman Origins, and there was no other publisher putting out games like them. Every game felt unique. Hell, Far Cry 3 was a massive leap over Far Cry 2. And that game sold millions basically due to word of mouth. And especially when now, you have God of War, people like the whole Norse setting, people like going off mythologies now. And they had the best, basically, franchise to kick off, multiple different mythologies. They could have went to Egypt, Japan, anywhere, and they cancel it. Honestly, dumbest decision Ubisoft has probably ever made, in my opinion. And I say that as a Splinter Cell fan. I say that as a salty Splinter Cell fan for 10 years. You know, every single time they have a live showcase and they just announce Splinter Cell skins. Yeah, and yeah, but I just can't stand it, man. And if people haven't played Immortals Fenyx Rising, please play it. It's in Game Pass right now. It is basically Breath of the Wild, but your weapons don't break, basically. But yeah. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say on the topic before we move on?
No, just that I hope they turn ship around. Like they have a great history and have a lot of interesting IPs, and I really wish they would expand more.
Yeah. You know, we didn't have a show last week because the internet was down countrywide for some reason. So basically, Microsoft, they made the backwards compatible servers for Call of Duty work again, and Call of Duty has been popping off since. There's, I think, 6 old Call of Duty games in the top 10 in the UK, and I think it's similar in the US as well. You know, these games that are eventually going to go to Game Pass, right? And the reaction's been huge. You know, the Xbox Series X and S sold out in the UK on Amazon. That's where most people buy consoles in the UK. And the weird reaction I got online kind of surprised me. And I say that as someone that gets dumb replies on a daily basis. People were legitimately angry that Microsoft seems to have like Microsoft's had backwards compatibility for years. It's something they don't advertise for some reason. They finally fixed the Call of Duty servers to the best Call of Duty games, and it seems to be selling consoles. You know, it also might have something to do with Starfield, but the fact that I mentioned consoles selling good and they were Microsoft's, people were livid. People were angry. And I honestly don't understand that. After the past 18 months, we've all been seeing things with, you know, competition and monopolies and the CMA and the FTC and stuff. But every time Microsoft seems to have something, be it a game or a feature or something that moves the needle just a little bit, people are angry. They're trying to come up with reasons. Like, people were saying I was lying, right? And they were posting pictures of Amazon in the US. Like, I'm from the UK, fuckface. Like, sorry for swearing again, but I'm a bit heated today. But Logan, you must have seen this. Like, people, for some reason, like when Call of Duty happened in the US as well, consoles are selling out. Just happened to coincide with Call of Duty popping off again, the old ones, and people were angry that the consoles were selling.
Yeah, like there have always been bad faith takes on Twitter. I mean, Twitter is, bad faith takes are us basically. A whole bunch of stuff in like sports, gaming, whatever. But it feels like post pandemic it just like cooked everybody's brain. Like everybody like there have been so many just ludicrously just ridiculous, takes on both sides of the aisle, but especially the PlayStation side recently about all kinds of stuff, like especially in the last 18 months, this whole ABK drama and how it's just like anything that could remotely be positive for Xbox must be bad in some other area, or we must go over the top ridiculous to downplay some other aspect to make up for a positive that's going on somewhere else. It's been insane. Like, tell me you don't care about old games, yet you flip your stuff about people flocking to play Call of Duty like 2011 again, and everybody's on Xbox Live calling everybody's mom or whatever, like it used to be. It's like it's crazy that people are just losing their mind over ridiculous things. It shows the power of backwards compatibility. It's a topic for later in the show, I know, but just to briefly touch on it, it shows how important and how big it was and how baller of a decision it was that Xbox doubled down on it, even when their competitors kind of bare bones token gestured it Or Nintendo didn't even do it at all, basically, except for digital subscription streaming. So it's just PC matters. Older games people like. If a game is good, people want to play it. It doesn't matter if it's just like films. Like, you have your classics like Casablanca, which are from like, 30s, 40s. And then you've got, Star Wars and that golden era of 70s and 80s films that people still love and cherish. And then you have your modern, Barbie Oppenheimer or No Hard Feelings. People want to go see good stuff or experience good stuff all the time. Doesn't matter how old or how new it is. And anybody trying to downplay it and trying to make it sound like just because, well, that was so 5 minutes ago. Like, attitude is just get out of here. That's bad faith take, and you're making yourself look unintelligent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the top 10 in the UK right now. So we have Black Ops 2 at number 1, Modern Warfare 2 at number 2. That's the original Modern Warfare 2. We have Black Ops at 3, Modern Warfare 3 at 4, Red Dead Redemption 2, although most people would call that an old game, But there's World at War at number 10. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare is at 14. Hell, Black Ops 3, the game I get told not to play the most, is at number 6. Like, that's crazy. And it just goes to show, like, people will play backwards compatible games. And I've been trying to make a point on Twitter for the past week, and for people that haven't really understood, I'll mention. So for the past week and a half, I've been posting a clip every night of a certain enhanced backwards compatible game and saying, hey, this game is backwards compatible and it has X and X features. And I shouldn't be surprised, but I am. There's people, since the whole Call of Duty servers were fixed thing, that tell me they had no idea games were backwards compatible. No idea.
That's a failing on Microsoft's part, then.
Yeah, it absolutely. And because I've been trying to tell, basically Microsoft this for years, like, they have this super powerful console that can do all sorts, but they do not advertise backwards compatibility anywhere. I mean, anywhere in the market, right? They'll advertise velocity architecture. They'll advertise, things like, the SSD and can't speak. The ability to do 120 frames, 8K, all that crap, but not backwards compatibility. Yet backwards compatibility is popping off right now. I was playing Black Ops last week or whatever, and it was like 140,000 players. 140,000 players. Now, the last time I played, back when the servers weren't fixed and they were filled with hackers, there was about 4,000 people playing. Right, and that was a big number for back then. But like, people will play old games, and I don't understand the sentiment that the same crowd that say, "Hey, buy your games, support the devs," are the same crowd that doesn't support backwards compatibility. Isn't that an oxymoron? Aren't you technically, like, one, you're screwing yourself over, and two, that doesn't make any sense. So you want people to buy games, but not the ability to play them, and if they do want to play them, they shouldn't because they're old games. What? that makes no sense. Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because it makes no sense. When I've been talking about the backwards compatible stuff on Twitter, I just get people saying, hey, I've got my Xbox 360 hooked up, I can play a Black Ops that way. Yes, you can, but that's not the point. Backwards compatibility. Look, what's better, having all of your consoles plugged in at the same time so you can experience multiple generations of games on the same television, or have your one console hooked up where you can play most of your games? Like, luckily for me, about 90% of my 360 library is backwards compatible. Thankfully. I just happen to pick the ones that are backwards compatible. But it's stupid. And a lot of the Call of Duties were, I think, about 80% off until today. I got the first Black Ops for £12. I was going to get World at War and Black Ops 3, even though people tell me it's crap. But, like, look, it's a good time to be a Call of Duty fan. If you're like me and you were huge into Call of Duty 10 years ago, 12 years ago, hell, 13 years ago, Like, and you go back to those games. One, it's a huge nostalgia punch to the face. It's amazing. And like, as much as like new Call of Duty looks amazing, sounds amazing, there's something about those older games, that multiplayer, that is just, I don't know, it's of a different time. You don't have battle passes. You don't have microtransactions. Literally, when you start the game, it says campaign, multiplayer, zombies. And that's it. That's all you had to bloody worry about then. Do you want to play your campaign? Or do you want to play some multiplayer? Do you want to play some zombies? Or some Spec Ops, right? But now, like, Logan, have you got Modern Warfare 2 at all? Like the new one?
I have it, but I haven't played through it yet, and I definitely haven't played multiplayer. But from watching the online stuff of it and the modern ones, I don't like the multiplayer as much. At least watching from afar, as I did the older ones. Like, it's just something that breaks the immersion when you have Nicki Minaj flying across the screen, ninja kicking somebody, and they're, shooting them with a shotgun or something, versus, you're in a ghillie suit sliding through this field trying to hide behind, a carousel, and then you snipe, or you do this or this. It's just way different vibes.
Yeah, like, basically, back when you went on to Call of Duty in, like, 2010, 11, 12, whatever, you literally start the game and you're given three options: multiplayer, co-op, or campaign. The menu for Modern Warfare 2 is so confusing, right, that when I play multiplayer with one of my mates who still plays new COD, he has to invite me to his game because I can't find the game modes. I'm not even kidding. It's egregious. Hell, when you start the game up, the battle pass crap comes up straight away. It's like, no, I'm not buying that. Like, but like, there's something pure about old COD. It's just pure. It's better. Like, hell, you get that guitar riff when you level up, and it's amazing. You make an emblem out of a bunch of shapes. Although back in 2010, people got really creative. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, people got like, all we had was like triangles, squares, and circles to make logos, and somehow people got really artistic. Yeah, I was able to make like a Batman logo from the Dark Knight, but like, man, it was just a better era. And the funny thing is, if you do play multiplayer old Call of Duty now, you can tell it's all people between 20 and like 40 playing, because like you can hear people's babies crying in the background. Like, it's amazing, because back then everyone was swearing at each other, saying the worst things. Like people got into heated arguments back then in Call of Duty. Like you were fighting for your life. But now it was very pleasant, Oh, I've got to go and feed the kid. I'll be back in a minute. It's like, everyone is like, it's basically everyone that loved Call of Duty back then. And when I play a new COD, I swear everyone's sliding around on the ground like a chipmunk, wearing a jetpack, like, and they're doing like drop shots and all this stuff. And I'm like, why? Why is there someone running around with a purple gun? Why is Nicki Minaj chasing me? Right? Why? But old style COD, it's fun times. Although it did make me realize how bad I got at COD.
You've been a little rusty, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play old COD since about 2011, so or COD in general. Basically, I played the campaigns, but oof, I used to have like extremely high KD ratios. Now it's like 0.0. It's 0.7 or something like that. It's terrible. But yeah, BC's, it's good. People like it, and it's brought people back. Like, and that's positive. Anyway, we'll move on. I've been talking about backwards compatibility long enough. You know what? Let's talk about Final Fantasy. So every week, for as long as this podcast's been going, I have found some reason, some way, somehow to make fun of Square Enix. Well, not today. It's a first. Square Enix did something good. So it was the Final Fantasy 14 event in Japan, and they were saying a bunch of stuff. They were talking about the new expansion that comes out next year, and the head of Final Fantasy 14 welcomes Phil Spencer onto the stage. And what do you know? Final Fantasy 14, the MMO, is coming to Xbox Series X and S in 2024. Now, I saw a legion of people happy online, like genuinely happy, because one, it's been one of the most requested games on Xbox for, I'd say, a decade, right? It's been a long time. You know, ever since Final Fantasy XIV Rebirth, or whatever it's called, when they rebooted it, people have wanted that on Xbox, and we didn't know the deal. Then Final Fantasy XIV was rated for Xbox in 2018 in Brazil, right? So, like, people have thought it's going to come over for a very long time. Well, it's coming. It's going to support 4K, high-resolution textures, all that stuff. Now, that's great news. It's great news. You know, I saw someone online have a reaction. He got a bit tearful. I saw people make fun of him. Like, I don't like when people do that. Like, if someone's genuinely happy about a video game, just let them be. You know, it's cool. Like Earth is a cesspool at the minute where, if like despair and regret, if someone's happy about a video game, let them. Right? Earth is a pile of crap at the minute. Let people enjoy video games. But anyway, Final Fantasy XIV coming over, great news. The more interesting part was that they said more Final Fantasy games are going to come to Xbox. Because, look, we all know the situation, right? The situation for years has been, we got Final Fantasy 13 in 2009. I think it was 2009 or something. And, you know, we got the trilogy there. It was a very divisive trilogy. And then we get Final Fantasy 15 in 2016. Again, I liked it, but it was very divisive. The amount of marketing Square Enix spent on that game was egregious at best. And that's pretty much it. You know, we got Stranger of Paradise, Origins, weird name game. And then we got Crisis Core, the remake. I'm going to call it a remake because that's basically what it is. And by the way, I love Crisis Core. Incredible game. But the status quo for years has been Microsoft isn't really going to get Final Fantasy games. And they said, when possible, games are going to start coming over. Logan, what was your reaction to this? Because it was colossal news.
Yeah, first off, I'm super thrilled that it looks like Xbox and the new regime at Square Enix have patched things up and they're on good footing going forward. And don't think it's a coincidence that not long after the previous CEO is gone and some administrative change, that lo and behold a new CEO's in charge, and then Xbox and them suddenly are in better terms. Like, maybe there was just a different, business structure, different, priorities, whatever, but as soon as the previous administration changed, it seems like Xbox may have found an opportunity to get in good with the new leaders and go like, hey, let's go with them. This seems like a chance at a reset. And, whatever happened with the older stuff, let bygones be bygones. It was different strategy, different people, different priorities. But get in good with the new leadership and let's make things good going forward. And I'm very happy. Like, happy for everybody who's been wanting this MMO forever. They finally are getting it on Xbox. This makes me think, we could be seeing a Pixels, collection maybe at Tokyo Game Show. Maybe some of these other games that, quote, timed, that came to Fire tablets for crying out loud, but not Xbox. Maybe we can finally get those. Octopath Traveler 2. Maybe Legend of Mana. But also the wording of it made me think that there are a few titles that Xbox won't be getting soon, if at all. Like, there are still a few contractually they won't. For the most part, seems great. Very happy.
Yeah, I mean, the way it was worded, and they do have contracts for Final Fantasy 16 and the remake. Now, I want to talk about the remake because when that game came out, on the box in the corner, it said exclusive to PlayStation consoles for, was it a year or 2 years? It said
it was a year at first,
and then they changed it to 2 years, and then we heard in all the CMA files and all that crap that it was for life, basically. So last week I made a post saying, "Hey, would you want Final Fantasy VII on Xbox?" It turns out a lot of people want Final Fantasy VII on Xbox, the remake. Here's why I'm optimistic. So back in 2015, Sony held a show, and I think it was October. It was called PSX 2015, and the president of Square Enix walks out on stage and said Final Fantasy VII is coming to PlayStation, and it was the port of the Steam version, basically. It was coming to PlayStation, and it would only ever be on PlayStation, lifetime exclusive, PlayStation, PlayStation, PlayStation. Well, if you fast forward to 2019, 7, 10, 12, all came to Xbox. So I think that whole lifetime exclusive thing doesn't actually mean life. We've talked about it on the show before. I believe Lucas in chat a while ago, when he was in chat anyway a while ago, had the same idea. I think when the trilogy is done, they'll come to Xbox then. So you have Rebirth coming out next year, and I assume the third and final one's going to be 20... Man, I'm going to be old. 2027 at a push. 2028. So I think we will possibly get the Final Fantasy Trilogy remake next gen. Now, it's not the best thing to say, I know, but it's better than nothing. But the good news is, hey, I think it's possible. Like, Logan, do you think there's any rhyme or reason as to, like, that could be a thing?
I think it makes sense that if it's not a permanent exclusive, that they're like, a console generation exclusive makes sense. Like, get the trilogy out, have them all for PS5, PS4, like this generation you associate with PlayStation. And then when they're all out, maybe having next gen versions, or maybe having like a Ultimate Edition trilogy collection or something come to Xbox. I could see happening. Again, because Sony has been just so obsessive with making sure Final Fantasy stuff is, connected to their platform. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that one just never does. But I do think the door is at least cracked now compared to ironclad, shut, welded door.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, the whole situation with Square is at least somewhat better now, because before that event, like, we all just thought it was done. Like, I just assumed every single, Dragon Quest, Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy game would just not come to Xbox. So now that door is just slightly cracked open a little, it's looking good. And Square Enix has a bunch of, like, big games coming up over the next few years outside of, Final Fantasy. They have, Kingdom Hearts, there's Dragon Quest 3, 2D, HD, whatever it's called. And, there is a Final Fantasy 9 remake apparently coming out. I assume that's going to come to Xbox as well. But Logan, do you think you'll actually play Final Fantasy 14? Because I've been looking for an MMO to play properly for years, and I've never found one. Star Trek Online, I put some time into, but it didn't hook me like I thought it would. And I think maybe Final Fantasy 14 might be the one. The thing about that game is it is a subscription-based game. So it's like, I think it's like £25 for 90 days. And honestly, I think I'll pay it just to try it out.
Honestly, probably not for me. Like, Final Fantasy 14 was a huge get for Xbox, but I'm just honestly not a big MMO guy. I think if there was one I would play, it would be, Old Republic if it ever came to console. It's like my Star Wars fandom trumps, like, even, my gaming associations and stuff, to where it'd be like, okay, there's a full-on massive Star Wars experience on your console. You better believe I'll be trying it out. Where, like, it would take something like that for me to get into an MMO. Probably not, but I'm very happy for those that have been wanting this game.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot, as 13KV1 Production said in chat, Star Ocean. I completely forgot about that. There's a 2.5D Star Ocean game coming out that looks really cool. Hopefully that comes to Xbox. Again, it was only announced for Switch and PlayStation. But hey, things can change now. It's a good look because Microsoft clearly has a good relationship with Sega. All good. They have a good relationship with Bandai. Basically every other publisher other than Square Enix. So that fence has been mended. It's all looking good. I just hope that we hear about some type, like you said, maybe we'll see a Tokyo Game Show, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. Doesn't that seem like the most no-brainer game to port to Xbox? like we get Crisis Core, the remake. It's 4K 60. It's beautiful. It's an amazing game, but we don't get the remasters of pixelated SNES games.
I mean, it's on Fire tablets for crying out loud. I don't think Sony would have paid more than $5 to keep that exclusive if it was something like that. So yeah, surely they can get that done.
Yeah, hopefully that'll come this year. But hey, it's a good look and all that stuff. About an hour and 20 minutes into the show. If you're enjoying it, please hit like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really, really does help the channel out. And by the way, with it being August now, I have a link in the description of the 10 biggest games coming to Xbox this month. So if you haven't checked it out, it's there below. Super chats are live if you want to read anything read out or answered or anything. Anyway, Logan, we still have a bunch of topics left. You know what? I want to talk about Quantum Error. Now, if people aren't aware, Quantum Error is the next gen only, super realistic, SSD, mega SSD powered, first person and third person horror game only for PS5 at launch.
Made by 4 dudes, right?
Yeah, made by 4 dudes and it looks like shit. Look, I don't like hating on games, I don't, but I cannot stand seeing developers, look, we can all make jokes online. Right, I try to be professional when I make videos on the podcast. I'm a little bit more relaxed. But when developers are making a game, then they know that's going to be multi-platform. And they've said it's going to be multi-platform. Do you really think the best thing to do is to make one side of the fan base angry? The fan base that you're going to try and sell that game to? That just isn't a good move. And basically, they were saying that the PlayStation 5's SSD was so much faster to the point where it could only run, that game. So they put out some footage, and they were just flaming the wars for, I'd say, about 2 or 3 weeks straight. And I don't think they've actually stopped. And they posted a little bit of footage of this game, and look for a game made by 4 or 5 dudes. Yeah, it looks cool, but I don't understand why some developers, and it's always smaller developers, they'll always fan in the wars, console wars, and then you go to Google Trends and type in Quantum Error, and there's a spike every time they make fun of the SSD. Bit of a coincidence, isn't it, Logan?
Yeah, it's like those the dudes who made the Postal series and how it was banned from Xbox, and how generally I'm kind of the opinion, this is a whole side note on censorship and all that, but about how for whatever reason their games weren't coming to Xbox, weren't approved, whatever. And so then it goes from that to, okay, let's take shots at Xbox all the time, and we'll embrace being edgelord and just try to manufacture crap like that. And so try to pump up your game. And then you take shots at games, and it's like, have you looked at how yours has been doing? But, it's like the whole throwing rocks when you're in a glass castle kind of thing. And so, and then it goes, especially for this, a smaller team trying to make a game, trying to make a name for themselves, make some jokes, they think it's funny. It ends up making a whole platform kind of turn against them. So it's one of those, always double or triple check what you tweet or post, especially if it, it's humor-like stuff to where it could piss some people off. Some people have built up accounts to where people know them and they know they're joking, or they know they're just being witty or snarky and it's not serious or whatever. But especially if you put out something like that could affect your business and your platform and maybe relationships with publishers and other things, it just, the laughs don't seem worth it to me. But, again, that's me. I'm not running a studio trying to make a game and trying to latch on to fanboy vitriol. That's just not my style. But you know what? To each their own.
Yeah, and they basically said that they didn't optimize the Xbox like storage yet because Xbox uses direct storage and some developers don't even take advantage of it. So basically, you have instant loading and like look, if you have a game like Starfield coming to Xbox in a month, and then you have that game Quantum Error, and they say the SSD isn't powerful enough, like come on, like it's all just like it's honestly, it's a terrible version of viral marketing, and it's working, unfortunately. But if you look at like Google Trends and search Quantum Error, like nobody was talking about that game until they start mentioning the SSD stuff. And like, look, a bit of a tangent. I hate the fact that this generation was hyped up more than anything because of SSD storage and speeds. Like, we've never had a console generation upon us coming out where people are like, hey, this console, it can do this graphics and this graphics. It's going to be able to, like, pump out realistic graphics more than ever before. This generation, it was SSD speed. Why? What? Like, that's all people are hyped about? We're not, like, hyped about, maybe bodies not disappearing in rooms when you, like, clear out an area. Maybe, more detailed areas. Maybe better AI for characters. But no. We had to hype up SSD speed. Why? Because that's where the strength was on the PlayStation. Nowhere else, just SSD speed. And, seeing developers play up to it, it's not going to do them any good because when Quantum Error eventually releases on Xbox, people will remember and they'll decide not to purchase it. It is what it is. And I don't think Microsoft's going to write them a Game Pass check either. Because they pay attention to this stuff. They really do.
I would be surprised.
Yeah. And honestly, it doesn't look that good. Like, I'll just put it out there. Like, there's a dude that looks like the Michelin Man. Like, I'll just say that. Anyway, we'll move on. We've got a bunch of topics left. You know what? We'll talk about this now. So, Hasbro. They want the Transformers games to come back. Now, if you've been following me for a while, the Transformers games, the Cybertron games, I've been talking about endlessly because I've heard nothing but good stuff about them for years. They came out during the Call of Duty high, where I was on that most of the time. Anyway, I got the games brand new last year for a total of, I think it was like £62, still wrapped, hoping that maybe with the Activision deal, we'll get them backwards compatible or even remasters. And it turns out the thing that's stopping them from being resold is apparently, that the source code was lost for all of the Hasbro Xbox 360 and Xbox One games. Well, just before the show went live, we found out it turns out that's not the case. It turns out that they do have the source code, and they know where it's at. Logan, you're pretty much surprised as me, as I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, because, I was operating under the theory that, well, that would explain why we haven't had any more of those, or remasters of them. They bloody lost the code. They pulled a Konami and Silent Hill, HD collection where there's all this fog, or, Comic Sans font, or, Final Fantasy IX wasn't able to be remastered for ages because of lost source code. And some other classic examples out there. So I was like, okay, bummer. That's gonna be a problem. Guess we're gonna have a whole bunch of interns scour their archives and try to find them. Maybe Jerry rig and patch something together and try to get it out. Now it sounds like nope, they're not lost. We know exactly where they are. So to me, that raises the potential a lot for them to re-release them or make them backwards compatible or both. Once the deal is done with Activision, and assuming licenses can get dealt with. Like, I have a feeling that's what the holdup is. Like, we talk about all these delistings and stuff. To this day, I just do not understand how licenses are such this Goliath is thing that is so difficult for them to overcome or work around or find new solutions to. Just for whatever reason, these worded, documents and all these things are to a point where it's like they can't find ways to modernize them or something. It's just crazy.
Yeah, the good thing is like clearly either Hasbro want the check for like a relicensing fee, or they literally have no issue with it because they mentioned Game Pass in that article. Like Hasbro
Mhm.
mentioned that. So like out of all of the licenses for like licensed games, RoboCop, Terminator, Spider-Man, Superman, whatever you want to call it, I honestly think that Transformers would be the least hardest to sort out. Right? As far as I know, there's one developer right now making a Transformers game. It's going to be a four-player, up to four-player co-op action RPG with MMO-like elements, but I can't imagine that license would be hard to sort out. There's already an XCOM-style Transformers game available on Xbox right now. It might still actually be in Game Pass. So, like, I think that's stuff they can sort out. Activision has a lot of old BC games that we just don't have. I talk about Singularity all the time, and like,
As you should.
yeah, and like the fact that like with that deal going forward, we could actually see some more stuff. Like, why is Jason Ronald been so quiet for a year, 2 years even? The entire team there hasn't been any upgrade to any backwards compatible games for 2 years. They've been pretty much silent, and I think that maybe there's been some stuff happening. And look, I think out of all of the Activision games, I think that maybe the Transformers games, the Cybertron games, pretty much get the most attention. People would love to have those available. As far as I know, the Xbox One version of Fall of Cybertron was only available on sale for a year before it was pulled. So hey, hopefully we can see that stuff now. I said there's going to be a bunch of benefits due to Microsoft purchasing Activision, and this is one of them. Like, we probably wouldn't have seen any story like this if Microsoft never went ahead and tried to purchase them. And the fact that we might see these licenses come back, that's awesome. Um, you know, and it doesn't go to just towards Hasbro games either. Like Activision, if you look at Activision Xbox 360 games specifically, they made like 100 games that aren't Call of Duty. Superhero games. They made the Spider-Man games, and the Guitar Hero games. Although we could pretty much write off Guitar Hero because of the licensed music. But like you're saying, like movie licenses are fine, right? If a film comes out and it has a song in it, it's fine for eternity. Video games are messed up beyond belief. A game can come out on October or something this year, and then the song license could expire next year, and then they have to pull it and recode the game, pull the song, put something else in. It's a stupid game situation. We've talked about this before. Like, look at Alan Wake. Alan Wake was pulled from Xbox Live for about a month because of a song, and then they put it back on the store with the song, still in there because they got the license back. And then when they remastered the game, it had the same song in. Quantum Break had the same thing, one bloody song. You have Metal Gear Solid HD collection. Basically, any version of Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 sold online was pulled due to World War II footage. Although that's coming back this year in a new collection. But licenses for video games, it's just all over the place. And I hate to see over and over and over again games get pulled and we may never get to play them again. Like, my Transformers games are still in plastic for almost a year now, with the sheer hope of being able to pop them in my Xbox Series X, because my 360 is too bloody loud, right? I want to be able to play and take screenshots and record clips, right? And post them on Twitter and use them in videos. But as of now, can't do that. But hey, it's a better situation than we were last week, because we could potentially see all these games come back. Like, Logan, is there anything in particular you want to be, come back to new platforms?
Oh, absolutely. Like I've compiled like a database of like games I would love to that were made BC, or games that I would love to make BC, stuff like that. And I have a whole basically a tub in my closet of games that I've set aside that I hope and pray still make the cut eventually. And with this ABK deal happening, it feels like there are some titles that are going to be given a last chance, last call, life raft, make it onto this generation. Like, not reporting anything, not saying it's happening, but it just feels right that all after all this time, after all this legal mumbo jumbo, the court cases, the BC team gone dark, all this other stuff, that when we finally get to the end of this journey and they cross the finish line, that there could be another BC batch or two that have ABK games. And some of those are even Bethesda tied in, like, because of, we talk about how complicated licensings are. Like Quake 4, Return to Castle Wolfenstein like 2009 by Raven, I think. Like, those are games that are IPs associated with Bethesda, but for whatever reason they have some stuff tied into Activision, so they aren't BC. So get this deal done, those could potentially come back. You've got Blur, which would be super awesome, fun racing game. Of course, racers are kind of touchy on if you can get those approved or not. You've got Gun, which could theoretically be their Red Dead Redemption type franchise. You've got the prototype games that weren't made BC, though there's a bundle of them on Xbox One port. There's older Crash Bandicoot and Spyro games, True Crime series, Skylanders, some of the older Tony Hawk games. There's, just so many franchises and games they have that Singularity is like high on my list personally. Absolutely want that game to get another chance. Incredible game. Deserves a PC and more franchise. And then, like I said, those Bethesda games, which are like, seriously, we have 3/4 of the rights or whatever, but there's just one thing holding it up, kind of seems like. Like, get that done. Get those across the finish line. Let's go. Like, there's all the ingredients for an amazing BC batch.
Yeah, and we live in a reality where that stuff can happen now. So hopefully October comes around, the deal is 100% done. We can finally stop talking about ABK, FTC, all the letters of the alphabet, and yeah, we'll get some cool BC games. Or even like, if they're gonna come out with relicensing the Transformers, I'm just gonna mention the Cybertron games over and over again. Like, maybe they come out with 4K 60 FPS remasters or something, like a dual pack, because apparently people say the third one was absolutely terrible, and I've seen the trailer for it. It looks terrible, and it looks like it's not even connected to the first two. But hey, good news. Looks like it's gonna happen. Now, we have to talk about Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls. That game came out in 2000, was it 6 or 7?
Oh man, it's been a hot minute. It was an early 360 game.
Yeah, so it was an early 360 game, and I've said before on the channel, and people try to get me, by the way, when I posted about this news on Twitter, like, you don't support and don't want remakes from that generation. You're right. However, I can back up when I talk about things. I've said before, and many times on the podcast, I do not think remakes of 7th gen games should be a thing, outside of a few. I've talked about it before. Dragon Age Origins looked terrible the day it launched.
So bad.
Dead Space got remade, but that was essentially the only way it could come back because EA is testing the waters with it. Stuff like that. I think there's just only a handful of 360 games that genuinely need it. And Oblivion being one of them. Oblivion was an early 360 game. Like, compared to Skyrim is a generational leap in, just like the amount of things in the environment. Like, you walk around in Oblivion, it's just, you have this grass texture across the floor, that old green grass texture we used to get instead of grass. And
the Easter grass.
Yeah, and the occasional tree, and most of the trees didn't have leaves. There was barely any wildlife in that game. The best part about Oblivion was inside cities in tombs. Well, anyway, it turns out that Virtuous Studios, or Virtuous Games, is making an Elder Scrolls Oblivion remake. Now, it turns out this might be Unreal Engine, but still using code from the original. So for things like physics, like there was a cool physics bug in Oblivion where if you hold a paintbrush and drop it in midair, it would stay there. So you could essentially climb to the top of the map just using paintbrushes. It was a really cool physics glitch and just stuff like that. Well, anyway, in the past they've worked on The Outer Worlds, Medal of Honor, Above and Beyond, Final Fantasy XII, Zodiac Age, Outriders, Dark Souls Remastered, Marvel's Avengers, Grounded, Call of Duty Warzone, Destroy All Humans, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Horizon Zero Dawn, Bioshock The Collection, Playground Unknown's Battlegrounds, I said that wrong probably, XCOM 2 Collection, just a bunch of games, right? And they've worked on Halo in the past as well. But basically, they're making it. And I think it's true. All signs are pointing to it being true. Someone will probably write in the comment below or on Twitter later how, I'm being a hypocrite because I don't like remakes. No, I'm perfectly fine with remakes if they're justified. There's no justification for a... Let's talk about Halo 4, right? Halo 4 still looks good, right? That game does not need a remake at all. But Oblivion looks bad, right? It is 4K and it is 60 FPS, but you have 4K 60 FPS early, 360 RPG. It's not that good looking anyway. Hell, I was playing it recently and it's aged badly. Again, it's up there with Dragon Age Origins. But if you think about that game with the Oblivion gates, right? Every time you went into an Oblivion gate, you had the loading screen, and then you had to wait. And then every time you entered the castle in the Oblivion gate, there was another loading screen. Well, now with current technology, you'd be able to walk through one of those Oblivion gates and boom, you're there, right? We have that technology now. So personally, I'm excited for it. It looks to be aiming for 2024 or early 2025. Again, I'm fine with it. But to me, actually, before I continue, Logan, what's your thought on the whole remake thing? Because it looks like it's happening, and I know you love Oblivion.
Oh yeah, I am 100% all in on this for several reasons. One, it's an archaic 360 game. It's not just a 360 game. It was an early 360 game, and they've made a whole nother sequel, and then that sequel has had enhancements and other versions of it as well. And so take that for a side. Then there's, visually, it has not aged well at all. I remember being blown away when I played it and going, it's just incredible. The game itself, I have so many great memories of. And think about it. You go from playing Skyrim, if you're a new Bethesda fan, not one that's grown up with them like you and I have. If you go from Skyrim and you try to play a Morrowind or an Oblivion today,
Oof.
it is so much more complicated and way harder learning curve. And the combat, the leveling, all the skills, the fast travel, all this stuff was way more arduous then than it is in a game today. Where I can totally see a remake for that reason in itself alone. Just for that and visually. Give it Skyrim mechanics or combat systems or, visuals, all that. And wow, that's incredible. The setting and the story and everything and Oblivion were my favorite, honestly. I love Skyrim because of what all you can do. And I love the story and the game itself and the world, but as far as story and aesthetics, I still am Oblivion guy. So take that to Skyrim level or better, then yeah, you're making bank right there.
Yeah, Oblivion's pretty much from Oblivion has tons of side quests and that Skyrim, but Oblivion, I think it had a better main story than Skyrim.
Definitely.
You had the big wars in between the different factions and stuff. Where you did have faction wars in Skyrim, but it wasn't like that. I don't know if you remember, Logan, because it's such a long time ago, but there's a quest in Oblivion where you enter a castle at night while it's raining, and you have to defend from like incoming troops.
Mhm.
Like that was impressive for back in the day, and like that was mind blowing to me on 360. So if they're doing that with like Unreal Engine and obviously still using Skyrim's the original engine's physics, like they could have something special there. So to me, I think this is a win for everyone because you have Avowed coming out next year, fantasy RPG. You have Hellblade coming next year. Well, they have so many different studios and IP now that maybe they could actually drop these these remakes along with other games because potentially next year we could get Avowed, Hellblade, Clockwork Revolution, and this. By the way, I 100% think Clockwork Revolution's coming out next year. 1,000% believe
I see.
that. But yeah, I think it would be cool way to end the year, maybe next year. Maybe they'll come out with Avowed at the end of the year, but also the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And hey, I think that's cool. I think it's cool that they're going to invest in things like this because one of the things people have complained about for years is that Microsoft doesn't invest in their previous games. Like, while you can buy the original still, and the original is in Game Pass, why not make a remake of something? And if anyone gets bored at some point, go to YouTube and search Elder Scrolls Oblivion outtakes because some of the voice recording was so bad of Elder Scrolls that they left some of the outtake files in with the question, so you could be talking to a character and they'd be like, "Oh, should I do another take?" Like because they didn't scrub all of the audio. But yeah, and plus think of the memes, right? Oblivion came out years ago, and we still get Oblivion memes. Oblivion,
Mud crabs.
yeah, Oblivion NPC memes, yeah, all that stuff. Like it's a win for everyone. I think it's going to happen. Logan, do you think it'll actually come out next year?
I do. I think 2024 is a good bet for that one.
And if that's the case, like, do they need to do one for Skyrim? No, there's already a remaster of that out. We've already had enough releases of Skyrim.
I think Fallout 3 though.
Yeah, I love Fallout 3. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But I think with its like aesthetic and setting is the reason it looks like the way it is. So, but hey, I mean, it would be pretty cool to see Washington DC with all the ghouls and stuff and new tech. But I think it's important because it looks like Microsoft and Bethesda, they are willing to put out remakes of stuff. So you're going to have new titles throughout the year, but also remakes to pad it out a little bit. And I think that's a good way to go about it because I don't think a remake should be a main priority for the year. It shouldn't be like the best thing you have to release that year. It should be just another thing, It's the cherry on top situation. But yeah, anyway, it looks like it's coming out next year or early 2025. In the hindsight of things, that's not that far away. And before I finish the show, I want to talk about Starfield. A lot of people online are talking about the marketing, or should I say a lack thereof. If you look at previous Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, outside of the announcement, they tend to only market the game a month before release, right? And right now, we are exactly 1 month away from Starfield Premium Edition launching, right? And in the past few days, they've came out with a little animated series on YouTube. It looks pretty cool. I really need to watch it. But I think a lot of people are expecting like Halo-style marketing or something, where they advertise for months in advance. But if you look at previous Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, it's just a month. Look at Hogwarts Legacy. I know it's a different publisher, but Hogwarts Legacy was only marketed a month before release. That's just what they do. I don't think it's any cause for concern. Starfield is literally Bethesda's third pillar RPG. If it gets to like next week or something and you don't begin to see like trailers on TV, then I'd worry. But right now, I think they're just getting things started. Like Starfield's been selling great on Amazon. They also have the Xbox consoles selling out. There's also the Premium Edition upgrade, which is going to be how a lot of people get it if they play a Game Pass. I think the prospect of being able to play that game 5 days early is going to appeal to a lot of people. So I don't think people should worry. Like Logan, you've probably seen the whole talk on Twitter about how there's no marketing for it, but again, we're a month away.
Yeah, for Starfield in particular, I'm not too worried about it. I think it's one of those zeitgeist type Elden Ring experiences that are going to draw in so many people from different corners of the industry, and even casuals will be like, "Ooh, what is this?" Like this is like feels like an event type experience game. So I think it kind of markets itself. Obviously, having going all in on marketing would help. Like if you get a New York Times Square billboards, or you got your double decker buses with it on the side, or you're in the subway station or train station or buses, wherever you go, or TV, like get it on an NFL preseason game, or some college football's right around the corner, get it on some ESPN or whatever. Like traditional beats, I think would help. But for this particular game, I don't think it's 100% necessary. I think it would be helpful, but it's not needed.
Yeah, again, it's now it's the 2nd of August, so I don't think people have to worry. Again, but that, like, if you look back, it's like Skyrim and that. Like, it's a month of heavy marketing, and then the game's out, and then they market the game for months afterwards. This is going to be a big game that they sell at Christmas and all that stuff. So yeah, and the thing is about Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, those games don't just like peak after 2 months or whatever. Like, those games sell for years. Like, Skyrim sold millions upon millions before any Xbox One or PlayStation 4 versions, because it's a game that's it's a thing that people talk about. It's a kind of game that people want to play to be part of, because everyone, look at Elden Ring. People were talking about Elden Ring for 4 months. Everyone was posting clips all the time about their own unique experience. You're going to have that with Starfield. Some people are going to be playing for months just building spaceships. Some people are going to be playing months just flying around killing pirates. So I don't think it's something people should worry about. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
Nope, just excited that the ABK thing seems to be wrapping up. It hopefully, fingers crossed, end of the month is the deadline for CMA, and if they greenlight it, then we can finally just be done with this nonsense. And if not, well, the final stuff is like in October. So worst case, still not that much longer. So let's get this thing done.
Yeah, finally it's coming to a close, and honestly, when it's all done, I cannot wait to not say ABK, FTC, CMA ever again.
Oh my gosh, yes, wash them from the lexicon. Yeah, it's awful.
And that goes to everyone else that does podcasts as well. Like, talking about this legal stuff on a weekly basis can be very exhausting. That's why we haven't really talked about it this week outside of the BC stuff. But yeah, it's coming to a close. Good times ahead, and the rest of the year is packed for video games, so there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. But yeah, last week's videos, top 10 games coming out in August. The link is in the description down below. Highly recommend people watch it. Took a while to make. But yeah, everyone in chat's been awesome today. We'll be back at the same time next week, next Tuesday. Again, I already have a few topics listed for next week. Should be a good time. There's also games releasing between now and then. I should have a video out on Thursday of next week. Oh, sorry, this week. Something a little bit familiar if you've been paying attention to the podcast. But yeah, again, everyone in chat's been awesome. We're back next week. We're out. Peace, everybody.